Big, isn't he? But I tell you, he looked a lot bigger when I was just 5 years old and first came to the Natural History Museum in London. And I tell you, this giant skeleton and this amazing building was a turning point in my life. Because when it came to closing time and I had to go home, I wouldn't. I just laid down and screamed, "I don't want to go home!" Ever since that day, I've had a love relationship with this building. I went to college just down the road at Chelsea Polytechnic, and so used to bring me sandwich and have me lunch most days in this place, along with lots of little old ladies and gentlemen who spent long periods here because they had nowhere else to go. Now, they didn't teach me much about natural history, but they did teach me a very important lesson, one about loneliness. You see, human beings are gregarious creatures. We're family people. And when you don't have a family, you know, life can get pretty tough. This whole place sings the praises of creative evolution, but my favourite spot is just at the top of these stairs. Metasequoia, and you can see why it's called gigantea. This giant redwood was sliced off in its prime to provide us with a history book. Oh, Leif Erikson reaches North America where this tree grew. The Magna Carta's granted, but perhaps, no, definitely the most important date in human history is round here about 300 years ago, when the human world stopped being solar powered like this tree and headed for the Industrial Revolution. The World War had begun, the war upon the earth. There are parts of the museum the general public never see, because behind doors like this there are corridors and libraries and museums where dedicated scientists, the world experts, beaver away studying the biodiversity of the earth. It was in this very library I found a book called The Peat Bogs of Palessi that led me to a lifelong study of wetland. One reason I like getting my feet wet. When I was a little boy, there wasn't a cafeteria here, but I used to come with my dad and sit beside Charles Darwin and discuss a very important question. Was it evolution or was it creation? And it was pretty important for my dad too, because he was both a scientist and a Baptist lay preacher. And I think we came to a conclusion at the end of the war when we could get out into the countryside around London, and we found it bursting with biodiversity. Some force, yes, call it God if you will, set the whole of creative evolution in motion and then let it run. And here I am still worshipping natural history with Charles Darwin looking on. This is Joseph Banks, one of the great botanical explorers of the past. And it was reading his books, looking at his drawings, and then coming and looking at collections in museums like this that made me want to see it all for myself. So I set off on my